Hello and welcome to episode number 8 of Islington Mill and a monthly podcast series about the life and times of one of the UK's most beloved artist-led cultural centres, Salford's Islington Mill. This episode of Islington Mill and is a bit different from our previous podcasts. If you've been around the mill in the last month or so, or if you've been listening to this podcast regularly, you'll know that things are changing at Islington Mill, and for the first time in 5 years, the club space has returned and is open for business with cabaret, live music, bands, DJs, all kinds of happenings. The club space at Islington Mill is run on a lease basis, which means that every 5 or so years a different organisation takes on the lease and programmes the events that happen within the space. The organisation currently programming events in Islington Mill's club space is the PARTISAN Collective, and they are going to be the subject of this month's podcast. What makes this month's podcast different from the previous months is the plethora of different voices that are involved in the PARTISAN Collective. And rather than speaking as one unified voice or leaving it up to one person to take the role of speaking on behalf of PARTISAN, rather I interviewed a variety of different people who are involved in the organisation, which is quite large. Originally, for this episode of Islington Mill and, my idea was to document the history of the PARTISAN Collective, but I was quickly made aware that that history is quite broad, with a lot of different opinions, so rather than to focus on one voice, doing one history of one space, it'd be much more beneficial to treat PARTISAN how it likes to project itself, which is a diverse space that represents a lot of different people in many different ways. So rather than it being one long interview with one or two people as we previously had on Islington Mill and, this episode of the podcast is made up of roughly about half a dozen different interviews with different staff and role and collective members from PARTISAN. As PARTISAN operates collectively, it didn't feel right to just speak to one or two people, so I interviewed as many people as I could over the past 2 or 3 weeks while PARTISAN have been renovating the club space and getting it ready to open again for the first official event, which was Fatty Acid, on Saturday the 17th of December. And I have asked all the different people that I managed to get to do a little 5-minute interview with me, basically how they feel about the past, the present and the future of PARTISAN, and how that looks to be integrating with Islington Mill moving forward. And so, welcome to episode number 8 of Islington Mill and the PARTISAN Collective. Who are you?
I'm Charlie P and my pronouns are she, her.
Okay, and what's your involvement with PARTISAN?
So I am on the board, which is kind of, we kind of collectively make decisions for and on behalf of the members. So we're kind of a non-hierarchical structure because we're a co-op, but I guess at some point someone has to have some conversations about where to go. So we kind of get together, and then we are really nicely have people with lots of different kind of expertise and interests, and then just muddle through.
So on a very basic level, within the organisational structure of PARTISAN, there's a board?
Yes.
And then what else is there?
And then we have working groups, which is kind of targeted groups working in different areas. So not exhaustively, but we have people who do the licensed events, unlicensed events, the comms, fundraising. We also have a green team, our environment group. Web team we have as well, who makes sure all our website's working, and then we have volunteers and then all our members, but it's not kind of a firm structure, it's kind of really fluid in between of who you are within that as well.
It's quite a lot though.
Yes.
It's quite, Could you explain to some, like for instance, if somebody just hears about PARTISAN, that sounds like a nice place to go, what, if you could sum it up, what do you think people can expect when they come to the space PARTISAN?
It is a inclusive space where people can bring themselves exactly who they are and feel welcome. We are a party space, but we're also a political space, and we're a community space.
Okay.
So my dream would be that anyone could come and they wouldn't feel like they have to kind of put their outside face on. They can come in and be authentically who they are, and do their activities that feel authentic to them.
Yeah, cool. It's quite nice that there's like a party element and there's also a political element.
Yes.
Do you think those things ever clash, or clash might not be the right word, but surely there's a lot of discussion that needs to go on. It seems like quite a big organisation.
Yes. We're good at having those discussions. I think we're good at communicating, because we're all collective members of the same thing. We all have the same kind of end, which is that we want Partisan to be an inclusive, fun but political space.
Cool. And how do you think that fits into Islington Mill?
I think it fits in perfectly. I think they share a lot of our ethos, and I think it's going to be exciting to be a part of the community.
Cool.
I'm really excited to, we've been inside for 2 years longer, haven't we? So it's just going to be gorgeous to all get to know each other.
Yeah.
And I think Islington Mill's a space where people get to be authentically who they are, and I hope that Partisan can be part of that for them as well.
Cool. Do you have a favourite memory or a proudest achievement of Partisan or your involvement in it?
So when I joined, I was really interested in getting volunteers kind of back in and really feeling like they were a part of Partisan, because we'd been sat in our homes, hadn't we, for 2 years. So we really worked a lot to kind of get our volunteers back in the space and get the working groups going and kind of move again to being out of our bedrooms and into the space. And so we ran a working groups event, the first one after lockdown, and we had kind of life and people in the space again. So we've been having parties as we kind of emerged out, but it was kind of then having everyone in a space working towards the same collective goal was so lovely, and that felt really a privilege to be part of making that happen.
Okay, cool. And just to wrap it up, what is your ideal hope for Partisan in the Mill? As in Partisan, would this be Partisan kind of, like number 3?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Partisan number 3. What would be your ideal hope for what could be achieved in here?
I hope that I hope it's just a space that people feel that they belong in, and I hope that it's a space for positive change. I hope we are seeing a lot of people feeling at risk, people feeling like they can't, as I said, be themselves at the moment, and I hope that it will be a place of like hope, fun and hope and action.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Lovely.
Introduce yourselves, please.
I'm called Jasmine. I'm a she.
Hi, I'm Jess Rose. I'm she, her.
And what are your involvements in Partisan?
I'm a member, and I sort of just volunteer, really. I don't really have like a organising thing going on at the moment.
Okay.
But yeah, just like coming to events and helping out where I can.
I've been a member of Partisan since it was like not in the mill. I used to volunteer for Queer Family Tea, and I do stuff with Trans Mutual Aid and fundraise for different events.
Cool. What was it that attracted you both to Partisan in the first place?
The events, actually. Okay. The first thing I came to was the Team Am clothes swap at Pride last year, and that was like before I moved to Manchester, and I met some friends here, and and then after that I came quite regularly to Queer Family Tea after I moved here, and like various other events here, and then became a member, joined the Slack channel, and met lots of other people. And yeah.
Could you just give me a quick explanation of like the membership and how that works, just for anyone who doesn't know?
So you sign up on the website, and it basically, it's like a sliding scale thing, and it's it sort of like gets you perks and stuff, but the main thing it gets you is sort of like the community. Really, you're a member of like this incredible community, And yeah, like it also gets you like discounts on drinks at events and things like that. But yeah, it's like it's the sort of like members help sort of with like volunteering and organising and participating in different events, and yeah, there's just always so much going on. It feels a bit like overwhelming to me sometimes how much stuff there is kicking off.
Do you know how many members there are?
No, I don't know.
No, but I think what attracted to me to Partisan was just the pure like ability of people to come together to make a space that was like shared and accepting, and there's no judgment in this space. It seems to be very like, you know, you have straight groups that are super open-minded, and there's no boundary, there's no like boxes. Everyone's like willing to learn and share skills, and for me, I think what I love about it as well is it's the fact that like it's accessible, both in terms of money and like also physically. You know?
And like people are sort of very like aware of inclusion in all dimensions. Like coming to some events, it does feel quite white, which is definitely a big problem, and I know that has been addressed in the past. But like still so far to go on that front. I think that is one of the main problems I think with Partisan, sadly, is that it still does feel very white, and I think it does like struggle like on that like dimension of inclusion. But yeah, there's like so much like stuff around disability rights, which is often so ignored. And obviously so much stuff about trans and other queer groups inclusion. So I think it does feel like a very inclusive community.
Cool. What are your favourite memories or your like proudest achievement at Partisan?
It's a good question, isn't it? Probably when I did a strip show at one of the first Partisan gigs, because we finally had access to this new big space, and it was like, oh my god, like everyone was so excited. It was like, what are the possibilities? The possibilities are endless. And that was a proud moment, because it was like a bunch of queers going together being like, we can actually do this. We can make something great. Yeah.
Do you have any favourite memories?
I think just queer family tea, fatty acid, just dancing. And because I've only been a member since it was in the space over the road. I wasn't a member when it was in the old space, so I only know that space. So just like dancing with sort of small groups of people in this like space with like acoustic tiles on the ceiling and strip lights, and just like having the best times with great DJs and just like beautiful queers.
Cool, thank you very much. That was great. Who are you?
I'm Vivian Holmes. I am a member of the Partisan board.
Okay.
I briefly worked for Partisan for about 6 months doing events coordination things. And I've been involved in Partisan for basically since I've been in Manchester, which is about 5 years now.
Okay.
And and I sort of started getting properly into events. I was doing some like live music, which we put on events like Kieran Leonard, Ill did a single launch in the Art Space in Cheetham Hill, and so that was sort of how I got into it. And then I started running Fatty Acid, a sort of in-house queer night, having not really done a lot of like nightlife stuff really ever. So that was very much like, how do you do this? You just sort of like have a go, right? And then, which to me is very Partisan. It was like, what if we did this? What if we tried that? And then it just sort of happens. Which has been really nice.
But you're not you're on the board now, so you're not involved in the day-to-day running of it, is that right? Or
yeah, so it means we have sort of bi-weekly board meetings, and sort of if there's like a decision that needs to be made like quickly, like big decisions, like always, I want to go through the collective, want to involve as many like members as possible, but just like it's just for sort of day-to-day running tends to be it's the staff members, and then like sort of when decisions need to be made, and like it's basically keeping as much so that a couple of staff members aren't like totally overrun. We're sort of just doing all the like bigger decisions, sort of medium level decisions.
Yeah.
That
because it does sound like actually Partisan is a lot of work. Just not in a bad way. Not in a bad way, but the more I'm speaking to people, the more I'm understanding how big an organisation it is with different branches of that. And it must be a lot of work to run it's not the right word, but to keep it going and to like, do you find any kind of like it's similar as well to Islington Mill, and this is something in talking with the other interviewers, like getting to speaking to people about like it's similar to Islington Mill in that there's like different wings of it, or there's like the people who want to do the parties, but then there's the people who are like, well, who's coming up on a Tuesday morning to clean it out, kind of thing as well. And do you know how many people are members?
This is the thing that no one really knows.
Okay,
like I'm pretty sure it's between 500 and 1,000.
Wow. Okay.
But that's a figure that I've heard across the several years that I've been involved, and obviously some people like are there for were there from the beginning.
Okay.
And and it's very fluctuating depending on who's like coming in and dropping out. So we don't actually have like a proper like database which we're like these are all the members, the current members who are like definitely doing things. Yeah. But it's sort of in the region of that. And that's including like God, I would say in terms of people who regularly use the space as members, it's probably I want to say like 50.
Okay, yeah.
Which like sort of includes staff. Yeah. It includes like just people sort of running like one-off events. Yeah. It includes people running like regular events that they do in the space. Yeah. Like people who like just come to all the parties. Yeah. And then there's a sort of bigger, broader people who like maybe just come to the parties and like come in every now and then, and like some of them members because like cheaper tickets, cheaper drinks. Yeah. And then there are people who are sort of more interested in it as like a political project. Yeah.
So where, like, from the point of view of the political side of Partisan, where does that fit in with what's happening here at the Mill right now? Because, full disclosure, there's loads of people inside in the club space doing it up because it's going to be reopened as Partisan. Where does the political aspect of Partisan fit in with that kind of slightly more, for want of a better phrase, like real world? Like, it's a physical space you walk into. Where does the political side of Partisan fit in?
So one of the big things, Partisan started when it was first sort of dreamed up in like sort of 2016-ish, I think. It was like before I was involved. It was very much in response to like gentrification in Manchester, like the sort of massive like constant building works, the lack of like community space in the city centre. And it was basically just like there really needs to be a space where people can just sort of go and not have to spend money and can just sort of sit and aren't like obliged to like buy things and keep being there. And then also it was like, it was a lot of sort of like people who were doing in like political groups. And that was like, one of the big things that we've always done in Partisan, and to me is like one of the sort of like quieter but actually like very important parts of it is everyone in the space, like political groups, we basically always like can use the space for free. Okay. And that sort of is a variety of things, like Sisters and Cart Manchester, like had meetings there, like and then a couple of groups sort of that I've been involved in, sort of Trans Mutual Aid Manchester, like just regular events there. I've started like Trans Women's like social group there, and like anything that's like that, which is like either Don't Pay UK has their meetings here for the Manchester branch, and that's always been, and like that, like having the space has been important. Just being like, this is good. You can come and do here. You can come in on like a Thursday evening where it probably like isn't being used by other people so much, and like do that. And like I think that's a really like strong through line, and that like that's sort of one of the things in which we've realised is that it lines up nicely with like how people want more like activity, like the flow in the mill. Yeah. Which is, and you know, and that's sort of been, I don't know the sort of full detail of it, but it's this whole thing of like, I think it's like Tim Lawrence, the sort of thing of like, you get people in with the parties. Yes. You get people thinking about how the fact that all the bar staff are volunteers, how like basically everyone running it is a volunteer. Yeah. People start going into that like more political motive view. And it's that thing of like, you know, there's that, so I'm not like a big dance music people, but like the rave is like a political space. Yes, absolutely. Especially like considering the like ongoing stuff of like illegal raves in like the 90s and like the repetitive music being banned and everything, and like, you know, and you know, it's sort of moving into like with drill music being criminalized, and which that space in which like sort of gathering of people to listen to music becomes a like highly politicized thing in certain contexts. And then that sort of bringing into that thing of like people coming to like the space together like as a like political thing, and there's that like the like, I don't know, I go back and forth on like the revolutionary potential of the dance floor, but I think it's definitely a thing of like, you know, there's still going to be parties after the revolution. Yes, true. And like, and it's for that sort of joy and like, you know, I don't know, maybe it's some like insurrectionary anarchist thing that I've heard someone talk about, but again, don't really know too much about. But that thing of like, you need, you know, the like necessity of like joy and like fun and like pleasure. Because the night before we stormed the ramparts, we have to have a massive rave because tonight we dance. Yes. And and so like it's that sort of combination of thing, and it's like I think like just having the like parties on our own, being that like, oh, this is inherently a political thing that we're doing, like maybe, but like I think having that in combination, having that in the same space, is where you're having like all these political groups meeting, where you have like all these people doing these sorts of things, and you have like something like Queer Family Tea, and just the fact that all of those things are in that like community space, and the fact that it's not owned by some like property developer who's like a millionaire, that it is like owned by the members. That's to me is like the really key thing to Partisan, is how it's like our space, and we do our stuff here, which like and I think like that's like, and we very much have our thing, and now sort of having that and like bring that into the mill is like a really exciting thing. Brilliant. One last question: what is your fondest memory or proudest achievement while working at Partisan, being involved in Partisan? I think it was the first fatty acid that we did, in which we you know, none of us had like done a club night before. None of us really knew what we were doing, but we just sort of threw it together. We basically stole a bunch of stuff from all different club nights that we like. We were like, well, Alt Femme has that like really cute like getting ready thing. We should do that. And we're like, the music of bollocks is just fun. We should do that. Like Creature of Catharsis, like oh my god, fucking like best cabaret like platform. And we're like, that's really cool. Having that space is really there. And so really it was sort of like I think there might have been more that I was like coming up, but I was like, let's like take all the best bits from like all the best other bits and sort of like see what happens if you put them together. And like we came to that first one and it just fucking worked. And like people fucking loved it. People had like an amazing time. There was like some incredible like art on display, and like and it was just that real like, oh shit, we can make a party and we can have a fucking great time, and it can be so good. And it was just like having that, and you know, it's like very trans space, and it's just like, having been to like some other like queer parties, and I was a bit like, I want more. And then you did it, and it worked, and it was great, and I was like, yes. To quote another cheesy movie line, if you build it, they will come. But brilliant. Thank you very much. That was great. Tell me, who are you and what is your role within Partisan?
My name's Natalie. I was originally a volunteer in Partisan for about a year, and then I think just about a month ago, I kind of stepped up to do a part-time role as the events coordinator. Okay. And so... What does coordinating events at Partisan entail? So I'm pretty much, well, you have your fingers in a lot of different pies because you're responding to people who email you, and then you're also sort of, because it's not just you saying yes to everything, you bring it to an events team, you talk over the logistics of it. And it helps you get a point of view on, whether people would think this is a good idea for our organization, whether, they think people will come to it, if it's worth putting on and bringing on board. Also, in these events meetings, people bring forth their own ideas, and most of the time, or pretty much all the time, we fully support them and, help them, make their sort of idea become a reality.
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of the sort of busy work around that, which is stocking a bar, promotion, sort of organizing volunteers. I do specifically licensed events or things that involve amplified noise or the sale of alcohol. Okay. So I've just started getting into that aspect. Before I was just kind of doing, bar shifts and helping put on events and stuff in the events team. So yeah, that's cool. Those are my bits.
Okay. I know, and it's like we're kind of at the end of December now, and from what you said, there's a lot of like flow in terms of what's happening at like the events that happen at Partisan. But do you know, like, could you tell us what's going to happen in the next few months? Is there anything, like any dates set for anything yet?
Yeah, well, December 17th we have Fatty Acid, which will be our first event in the new mill space, which I'm really excited about. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go because I'll be back in the US. Okay. But 29th we're having, not 29th, 31st. When's New Year's Eve?
31st,
yeah. Keep making this mistake and it's scaring people. So, because I'm the one supposed to be promoting it. I'm telling everyone the 29th New Year's Eve, and they're like, ooh. But 31st. We're doing a big old New Year's Eve party that's going to be from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. Okay. And the DJ lineup is hot, so it's going to be great. And then we have a lot of floating events happening because we're just kind of getting on our feet with really booking in things for the new year. So yeah, it's just like a lot of good DJ nights, and we're hopefully going to be putting on a few bands as well. We're definitely confirmed in for Sounds from the Other City. Brilliant, yeah. To be putting workshops in the gallery space and do some cool things. And hopefully I'll be getting in some shows with possibly an organization I work with called Sexquisite, which is a sex worker cabaret. Oh, brilliant. And I want to really bring that back into the mill because we did it at Partisan once, and I've done it in ultra large hybrid, and it was really great there, so I want to bring it back here. So a lot of things floating. Hopefully they'll be more concrete in the next month. Cool. But we're hoping to really get in events, every weekend. Yeah. Really make this place come alive. Yeah. Just in a general, it's kind of like the final question I'm asking everyone, and it's quite general, so take from this what you want. But like, ideally, what would you like to see Partisan achieve? Or what's your one major hope for Partisan moving forward? Do you know what I mean? I would love for it to be an open space where people could just come to, and there'll be things happening, and there'll be people they can meet, and it'll just be this safe haven in which people can come, they can talk, they can create, they can put on events. I think it would basically get Partisan to a point where it's stable enough to be a place that's just open and welcome for people. That's what I'd really like. So yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you.
Who are you?
Hi, my name's Ben. My pronouns are he, him. And I've been a Partisan member for probably about 3 years or so now. do a lot of volunteering in different roles around the space, and I'm also a member of our board.
Okay, and how did you get involved with Partisan?
I first got involved with Partisan back in the days when we had a venue in Cheetham Hill, which was very close to where I lived at the time. And I first turned up just as a punter, just to have a drink and dance and a good time. And I think if you asked a lot of people at Partisan, they would say they got involved in much the same way, is that if you spend enough time in the space, eventually somebody gives you a job.
Sounds familiar.
And yeah, it just sort of grew over time. I started off doing little bits and pieces of volunteering, worked in our cloakroom, worked behind the bar, did a little bit of DIY, eventually got involved sort of more behind the scenes doing communications work, which is what I do in my day job too.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just grown over time. It's a really welcoming, friendly space. Absolutely great bunch of people. I consider the members here some of my best friends now.
Okay, cool. How do you feel it's going to fit into the overall structure of Islington Mill?
I feel like Partisan and Islington Mill have a hell of a lot in common in terms of our kind of values, our ethos, the atmosphere of the spaces. I think that both places where a lot of fun, exciting stuff goes on. So yeah, it seems like a really sort of easy, natural fit to me. I'm really looking forward to see how we sort of grow in the space. Really
cool. Yeah,
I think it's for Partisan. I think it's a great opportunity to be sort of really ambitious in what we do and sort of have this bigger, more sort of permanent space where we can settle as an organisation and make it our home, and sort of working alongside Islington Mill, sort of plan some really cool events and activities.
Cool. And final question: what is your favourite memory from your involvement with Partisan, or like something that you're most proud of?
Oh, so many amazing memories and so many nights that are difficult to remember as well. I think seeing how when we first moved into Unit 2 on the Islington Mill site, I have photos of that space when it was a shell, and how we sort of pulled together as a team to make that place sort of warm and cosy and homely, and have the sort of atmosphere that reflects who we are. I think we transformed it. It was incredible, and yeah, we've got the chance to sort of do that again. So yeah, I think we're ready for it.
Excellent, thank you. I start by asking people, who are you, and you can say your pronouns if you want, and then I'll take it from there. So,
yeah.
Who are you?
I'm Teagues, and my pronouns are they, them. And yeah, I've been involved in Partisan for quite a while.
Okay, so how did you first get involved with Partisan?
I think my first involvement was doing a bar shift at Le Cootie back in the day at Cheetham Hill Road. And just one of my mates was like, you should come along to Partisan. It's a really nice community atmosphere. It'd only been open in the space for 2 months before then, and I'd already been eavesdropping on some of their plans, and it sounded great. So it was always in the back of my mind to be I should get down there. And then I did this 2-hour bar shift, and then had a wicked party with my friends for 3-4 hours afterwards. Ended up staying and cleaning up at the end as well with a bunch of people, and it just felt great to be part of the function and mechanics of the party rather than just the person going. It felt good to be part of all aspects of the party, not just I'm coming to club.
Yeah.
So
what about the parties set them apart from other parties?
For me, it was the acceptance of anybody within reason. Obviously, you can't have dickheads. But the mix of crowd there was really good for me, and just it also felt just super welcoming to almost any walk of life. So that was instantly different to most club atmospheres, where I think as a queer person you walk into most club atmospheres and you go, oh god, am I meant to be here? I don't feel like anyone else like me is here, and I might be outed or had the wrong thing to say to me or whatever it might be. So it was instantly that kind of relaxation of I can be myself here, and no one's going to criticize that or make me feel shitty for that. Cool. So I think that was the main thing, and also just the ability to just be part of the, as I said, like the mechanics from the get-go. Nothing felt like gate kept. It was kind of like, if you want to be involved, you're involved, you know? So didn't feel like there was any gatekeeping, whereas I think a lot of club atmospheres, it's like, we're the club runners, you're the punters. And it's actually like at Partisan, there's complete blurred lines between all of that, you know?
Does that not make it harder to run?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are your favourite memories of Partisan?
Maybe that first gig. I was incredibly high as well, which probably helped. Back when I used to still do that. And I think that other than that, it's probably been just the small things that are not clubby. So for instance, like running a bike workshop for the first time. So I got really into like bike mechanics. And then someone was like, you should teach people like your skills. And I was like really scared about it. But then loads of friends got behind me within the collective. And then I run maybe like 8 or 9 workshops whilst I still lived in the area. And that for me was just like so empowering. So I never thought I could like teach something that was quite like new to me. But yeah, I loved that. And then just like, I think just that coming together, like there's no one specific memory that I can contribute that to. It's more just like this coming together of like, let's all muck in and let's all like get it done. Which I think happens collectively a bit like an eclipse maybe, where it only comes around every now and again, where it feels properly all together, and then it's kind of picked up by more individuals every now and again. But yeah, when it all does come together and it feels like there's lots of you creating this experience, it's really quite powerful.
Cool, yeah. Do you think Partisan has changed in any way moving into Islington Mill?
It's hard to say yet, because it's quite, I guess we've been hibernating a bit. So I guess it's changed from that point of view. So pre-COVID, we were very active, using up all of our TENs, temporary events notices, every year, and making what we could of it. And then COVID came. We also moved to the Unit 2 space at the front there. And that with it meant that we kind of had to hibernate a little bit, kind of not have as much activity going on. And then when it did start happening, it was all quite minimal and quite small. So it feels like we're now coming out of that hibernation period and we're now trying to like make it all happen again. But rebuilding that collective source and that collective input is definitely difficult when you've been hibernating. So So what I hope is that as we transition into the club space, there'll definitely be that revitalisation of that atmosphere that we kind of had probably at Cheetham Hill Road more than at Unit 2. There still has been parts of it, but nowhere near as a scale that we had before.
And thinking like very big, like think as big as you want, what would be your ultimate ideal for Partisan in the future to represent, if you know what I mean? Like what's your main thing that you would really love Partisan to do? I'm it's a weird one. Like when I get asked about like my own personal opinion on where I want things to go, I always really struggle with it, because I think within Partisan I'm always trying to be like, what do you want to other people, to try and give them the empowerment that I once felt when I first joined Partisan. So I feel like much more of a facilitator now than someone who like maybe has as much direct input on Partisan's like future. So I want to facilitate other people to take on that responsibility and move it forward. But I think if I had to like really be pushed for an answer, it would be something like the ability to keep up with the keep up might not be the right word. Kind of like the shift in dynamic from going from a smaller space with all the things that come with that to a bigger space and all the things that come with that, and how we meet those challenges without going into like a more commercial zone. I really want Partisan to kind of keep its community spirit and keep its like DIY vibe, even with all the things that come with running a more full-on club space. So yeah, I guess for me that's the first step. I kind of struggle to see a bit beyond that at the moment, because things are changing so fast at the moment. Fair enough.
But yeah, just that ability to kind of be like, cool, facing this new opportunity, and we're doing it in the way that we all want to, without it kind of being dictated by one or two people. Okay. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Welcome. That's great. And so endeth the long, complex tale of the Partisan Collective. Not really. I'm sure as the collective begin to feel more settled here at Islington Mill, you'll be hearing more from them and about them on this very podcast. In the meantime, if you want to find out more information about Partisan and the upcoming series of events that they're going to be doing at Islington Mill, you could do worse than check out their website, which is partisancollective.co.uk. And you can also find a lot of that information at islingtonmill.co.uk too. All that's left for me now is to wish you all a very happy new year, all the best for 2023, and I'm going to indulge myself now by playing out the rest of this track, which you've been hearing between the various different Partisan Collective interviews on the podcast. It's one of my own. It's called Viva les Imaginaires, and it's from the album The Next Big Thing by me, The Nihilist, which you can find on my Spotify artist channel. Until 2023, adieu.